So, hi Laura, welcome to our conversation today around soul work and soul allyship. Oh, it's really nice to connect with you online and feel each other a bit more deeply because, as we were just saying, we've been kind of weaving in similar fields, and I've been always feeling a strong pull towards your work and love the kind of resonance and tone of what you stand for. So, it's really good to connect a little bit more. And so I wanted to talk today about soul allyship and soul work with regards to opening up to the deeper mysteries of life and what role someone as a soulful mentor or ally can play for someone on their journey of transformation or evolution, initiation, whatever you want to call it. So before we start properly, I'd love for you just to introduce yourself and share whatever you want to share about who you are and what you do.
Well, thank you for inviting me, Olivia. And I feel like just the first thing that comes before even I introduce myself, it's somehow I feel like even the manifestation of that call is somehow showing what is soul allyship. Like I don't really know you. We met briefly one time 4 years ago or something. You were very new in the field, not yet there or something. So we just said hi or something like this, and we never met ever again after that in flesh. And there was a level of resonance that was there since a while, and you reached out a few times, and I could feel the string of a soul resonance, whether or not we've met each other, whether or not we have history, whether or not we're in the same physical place or location. So somehow I feel like just this meeting is already an example that we're going to speak with more word about of what is soul allyship. So it's interesting. Yeah. So introducing myself. So my name is Laura Deva, and that's the name I'm called since a long time with, but my family name is Laura Lancia. And who am I? I'm a mystic, I'm like just following the thread of the mystery and like taking all the forms that it takes to receive more information about what is this mystery of life. But in the society, I would be, defined as a psychologist. I was a former psychologist and I just recently returned to a private practice, but I had to leave it for about 10 years so that I could just follow another thread that was more of the mystery of spirituality and then could eventually return to psychology and to a certain structure that felt way more real with the totality of what it is to be and to exist, not just from the mind perspective or the personality perspective, but more also in the alignment of of an awareness of the self that goes beyond what we think we are into a form. So yeah, that's what I am. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I've been reading some of your writings recently around the difference between the more therapeutic practice and the role as a soulful mentor and ally. And so I wonder if you can speak a little bit into what you see yourself as when it comes to soul allyship or mentor when you work with people.
Mm. Mm. So it's interesting because there is a sense, for me, in soul allyship, there is a sense of deep recognition. And that's why I was telling you it's interesting that you invite me and we never saw each other, just once briefly, because there is a sense of recognizing something that lives at the core of oneself that might or might not emerge, in this life, that might be tapped into or not. So it's not even about how the emergence of that soul will eventually happen, but it's more about the resonance of recognizing that there is a gem, a potential there that is just waiting to be called forth somehow, either by the willingness of your own soul, either through the gaze of someone else that can see it. And so yeah, for me, this is what it is about. And even when I'm in my psychology practice, sometimes I just gaze into the story or the personality of that being, and I can see that there is so many other things happening in the inner world that they might not even be aware of. And sometimes it's actually frustrating, to have to go to the pace of the awareness of who I have in front of me, and not pushing beyond the capacity to accept the reflection of how I see them, yeah. I feel like a lot of my learning in weaving between, like the body mind kind of word of psychology and of the mundane kind of universal stories that people come with when they come to the practice, and also being like hugely involved into soul work and transformational field. My challenge has been to sit back and really to respond to the pace of what this soul is able to take, and sometimes there's a capacity to pierce because the container is ripe, like it's ripe to be penetrated. And sometimes I just need to lean back and listen to the endless stories, so that there is a sense of rest that then from that place can unfold into something else, so yeah.
Totally. That reminds me of the many, many hours I've been working as a tantric massage therapist. And what I have really wanted to say in some examples is, do you know you're blowing your life up? Like, do you know that you're actively trying to blow your life up? But because there's sometimes these parts of us that momentum starts to happen when some deeper part of us wants to come online, and things naturally start to fall away. Divorces, death, accidents, illnesses, redundancies, jobs, all these, like the architecture of our life starts to shake when a deeper part of us is kind of like banging at the door to say, look at me, see me. And yeah, I resonate with that reflection around like what somebody is available for, and sometimes wanting just for it to be honest and seen, and sometimes it's actually about sitting with it and letting it reveal and letting the capacity stretch and to see what's revealing. Yeah. And it also leads me on to this dynamic, which I think is really good to talk into, which is the very fine art between having clarity of gaze and being someone with like a mystic channel who can see through form, see beyond the veils, and has a strong gaze of what's really might be revealing in someone, and not trying to make anything happen for someone or not assume that we know anything about somebody else's experience. So I wonder if that's either a tension or just a dance that you find within your practice.
The compassion also for myself, like there's been many times that I have been crystallized into a certain form or a sort form of whatever was happening to me, and I know that I've been cracked open the most when I was listened to where I was at, so it's like I feel like that gives me the strength. I don't know if you're here because you're freezing.
Yeah, you've frozen, but I can hear you.
Can you hear me? Okay, you're frozen too. It's a nice thing.
I can hear you. I'm going to press pause on the recording. Okay, we're back. Can you hear me okay?
Lost again. Yeah, you kind of. We're back.
We're back. Oh, life in rural Italy.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, so if I try to catch what I was trying to say, it's like I feel like my capacity to be patient and to listen to the pace. You're still frozen. I'm going to continue speaking.
Yeah, I can hear
See what
you.
happens. Yeah, not sure. Okay, yeah, you're moving.
I can hear you. You're just a little bit frozen.
Okay. So third attempt. We'll try again. The third time. Okay. Yeah, I feel like that capacity came by having a gaze of compassion upon the parts of the humans that needs to be loved and seen in their innocence, you know, like even when you're stuck into a loop, or if it's too difficult to come out of your opinion at that moment, or to stretch your capacity to go beyond what is happening to you through you. Yeah, it's like seeing the innocence of those parts that are yet young, or terrified, you know. It's like just terror. It's terror of those parts to dissolve, you know, and to merge into some bigger places, in the awareness. So yeah, like I feel like having that level of compassion for myself has definitely helped me to be way more patient with where people are at, and just to be there waiting, you know, like, and whenever it's right, it's like, oh yeah, just the precision of the gaze when it's asked for, it's very welcome. But one of the things, you know, I remember, because like that capacity to see, I've always had, you know, like I had since I was young. And I didn't really know what to do about that gift. You know, it really felt like the world was incongruent. It was like what I was feeling and seeing, and then it was what was happening before me, you know, and I was just like, there's something that doesn't match, as if the subtitle were wrong, you know, like, or something that didn't feel like things were coherent, or something. And every time I would address, you know, the things when I was young, like I would just be shut down, like that I was wrong. So there was a place in me that almost felt like I was insane, you know, like that there was like as if it was a different language or something that I couldn't understand well. I had to adapt my subtitles to be part, to belong. So then later on, I remember that capacity to see what was going on for people deep inside, I've used for protection. You know, so it's just like it would be my weapons. You know, whenever I would be threatened, I would just choose those weapons to put people in situation of uncomfort, you know, like basically, which is like, I see what you're doing, you know, like it's like, just don't piss me off. I see your game. Exactly. So, and it was even more, I felt even more unseen, you know, that if because used for personal threatened, you know, like I was personally threatened. And so you're freezing again, but I'll just continue.
Yeah, continue. I can hear you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, so it took a lot of hurt from me to develop something that was more still inside, to be able to deliver properly the gift of seeing when it was requested, and especially when I was not activated, you know, like especially when I'm not activated. If I'm activated, using that is a weapon, you know, like it's not fair. It's actually not fair. It's not a fair game, you know. Like, so it's like yeah. So I don't know how I got there, but somehow I got there.
Yeah, beautiful. Like I resonate a little bit in always having had the capacity to see what feels like it's really happening underneath the surface. And I remember I used to be always kind of drawn at dinner parties or at the dinner table to the person at the end of the table, and I'd just ask them, so what's this thing with your mother? Or, you know, you just come out with something that feels really obvious and just feel this recoiling of like, and understanding over time, like, okay, not everybody wants to talk about really deep things all the time. Actually, a lot of people find it quite repelling and annoying and rude and challenging. And I've definitely learned over time, instead of pushing forward to try and extract something, actually like be in my own heart and share my own experience and share more what's happening in my inner world and my own vulnerabilities, and meet from that place sometimes.
I think you're touching upon it like an interesting point, which is it's also a way to deflect from having the gaze upon you, you know, like it's definitely this. It's like, well, I have, I don't know, more capacity to see what's in you, so then I can just put my gaze constantly onto you. And of course, it's one of the shadow of the psychologist, I'm
Yeah.
just listening to everyone's story, but then it's like, yeah, you don't really find the time or space or people to speak about yours, so it is a shadow side of it. It's like a gift and a curse, as everything. It's like you see, but you don't let yourself be seen. So,
yeah, totally. I'd love to also talk to you about trust. So trust that comes in many forms. Trust in creating safety with somebody who can trust that we're holding, or you're holding their highest the highest perspective of their soul, and to create a container between you, which, because you work in kind of long-term cycles of 3 months or more, that there can be enough trust for the human parts, for the soul parts, to just meet and come into resonance. And what I'm noticing sometimes that happens is, can feel like not much is happening sometimes at the beginning. Like it can maybe feel like, oh, I'm going through a process, I'm feeling this, but not really sure what's happening. But I feel as more trust is developed and pieces start to come in, and greater awareness or time is given to certain parts, then the body or the body mind can catch up with the fact that our transformation is happening. So I wonder how you feel about trust in that particular realm of trust.
I don't encounter that problem much in the way that, especially if we're talking about the mentorships, first of all, I don't take many people, and not many people reach, like, I feel like there's like I feel like this channel is pretty pure. Like somehow there's some kind of purity around that I don't promote much. Like I don't want to have people necessarily in mentorship. There's something about there's something about me that is very sacred in what I have received from my mentors. And my mentors have never tried to catch me and tell me that they will be my mentors. It's been always like a slow building recognition that then became evident. And so I feel like in my mentorship, okay, it's written somewhere, so you can access it. I can tell when I do trainings, I say that I do that, and there is like a process of application, and many times I redirect people to something else because I don't feel my inner joy. And it's not joy like just it's pleasurable. Like I recognize when it's a good match when I have a joy in my heart. Like there's something that feels like something is there and it's already there. So actually most of the people that I've worked with in mentorship, it's been there since the beginning. Like it's like I feel like they had a resonance of trust, even just in coming into something that they have no idea what it's going to be about, and that I don't even know what it's going to be about. I found it more like the issue of trust. I found it more difficult with that I had to build trust with my patient in psychology, way more. Like because I feel like there is a level of connection that is recognized through the body mind, and so therefore the trust is not approaching the same way. It's not a vibration that is almost the currency that needs to be there at first somehow, like, more than anything else. And whereas like in psychology, it's like, well, I'm going to try a few psychologists and see where it goes, so it can take 1 or 2 sessions before people are like, okay, I'm going to continue with you. But I feel like within the mentorship, the way I've experimented them with the people I've worked with over the 3 last years, is that they already came with that token, like the token of trust was already there. Otherwise the recognition would not have matched, and when it's not there, I just redirect them where they need to be, like or where I think it would be better for them. Like I need to be in joy, I need to be in that quality where I do not need to do anything, because otherwise if I need to deserve your trust, then I will have to do something for you to see me as trustful,
Yeah.
and I don't want to do anything about that. It's
Mm.
like, I'm just there,
Mm.
I'm me. And if there is some kind of channel of resonance that then you can drink from, then yes, like,
Mm.
yes, we're gonna have just a relaxed time together in
Yeah.
which something will grow
Yeah.
automatically.
Totally. I love the framing of that. And maybe I should have framed it differently around like trust of the body mind that might be feeling like, what's happening? And trust of the soul, which is the resonance that we've been speaking about. And I know for myself, the mentor is exactly the same that I've sought out. It's it's been just a full trust because um for sure my mind or my human parts will know this is an established person with good credentials and blah blah blah, but it's not about that at all. It's actually about being driven from some deeper place that feels like, okay, this is where I need to go and drink from, and I don't know what's on the other side. And I think that's an important distinction when we're talking about like soul allyship is, for me, like I want to hold point for the deepest part of you to emerge and for you to flourish as the most soulful, like expansive person that you can be. But I'm not going to promise that anything specific will happen because, like you said, around marketing, we're in this very delicate dance when it comes to transformational work and soul work and offering our service to be of support to somebody's process. There's not a checklist that can be acquired. There's not a proof of things that will happen. There's not a way to market. And like you say, like it's important that not everybody actually works with a soul ally because they think they should. It needs to be a deeper call from a deeper place. Yeah. And within that requires I guess a level of resonance, trust and discernment. And yeah, so I wonder if we maybe tip into something that you hold very beautifully, I feel, which is living from the mystery. And so I'd love you to share anything you want about what I've just said. And also, if you feel to talk into like, what do you mean when you say I'm living from the mystery?
Well, I'm going to link two things. Something that
Yeah.
you just shared about the marketing thing. And I feel like
Mm,
in our field, it's like almost like sometimes people come into a soul revelation or a soul emergence and they feel like, wow, something are valuable for me. And then they're trying to market it, like,
mm,
and apply the same paradigm of the prison in which they were before into the soul realm. And then it becomes stagnant again.
mm,
Um, I remember, it's just about money now that I'm thinking something, but I remember one of my girlfriend in Australia that made so much money out of her life, like not because
mm,
she was rich before, but just because she was just in communion with that frequency.
mm,
And one of the things that she told me is like, well, the secret of becoming rich is that you have multiple stream, so that could be a
mm,
strategy from the mind that you never depending on one stream.
mm,
And then if I apply that to what I was sharing before about the joy, like
mm,
it's like I never had one string, like it's like I always have multiple string of incomes, but
mm,
it's not just about income, it's about also not having the pressure of feeling that I'm dependent financially and in my base and in my security of just one of my joy. Because at the
yeah.
moment that I put that kind of pressure onto my heart expansion of doing that, then it just becomes, it takes the life away somehow,
Mm,
So um what I found beautiful in the mentorship is like I don't need to have the mentorship to live, I have other things. And I
mm,
don't need to have my psychology practice to live because I have the mentorship and I have the
mm,
Easter trainings and I have the like so it's
mm,
like somehow it kind of keep me safe of not feeling that any of those streams uh, is vitally crucial,
mm,
like I could just have any of those so that
mm,
help me be maintained in a place of joy and discernment, you know. So then I prefer not to work with someone if that's not feeling good than just wanting to do something with someone because I need it. So that's one of the things which links then with the mystery, you know, because it's like I was reflecting the other day with someone about someone that is absolutely not in this field. Like she's a beautician, but in this village where I am, you know, like it's like I'm in a little village in the south of Italy where everyone's conditioned to have a certain kind of life. You certainly not independent, you're not free thinking, you can't build an empire, like it's not in the conditioning. And this woman from this village kind of created an empire of beauty, you know, but she did, and I was very impressed by her capacity to stand out, you know, in this village and to create something that was in resonance with the free spirit that she is, you know. And so we're just speaking about that quality on how did we manifested life that were the reflection of our soul, you know, like and to some kind of perspective. And I would have never ever been able to create that light if I wanted, or if I tried to tailor, you know, if I went to go to an office and say, okay, so that's the kind of job that I need because I'm very quickly bored, because I need to be always challenged, because I need to travel, but I also need safety. And, you know, there would be no job that would be available for me. You know? I could never, ever dreamed about creating a life that actually tick all the places in my soul where I can offer the most. And still it has happened. And that can only happen with a capacity to lean towards a quality or a note, you know, like something, and being radical with that note, which means like I'm not gonna do anything less than that. And maybe if that you don't know what that is, it's just like a whisper, you know, that you're just hearing somewhere, and you're just following the whisper without knowing what even this voice is telling you. But sometimes the voice is radical, you know. I had moments of authority of my soul talking to me and be like, okay, that was like, you need to come back to Switzerland, you know, like it was really clear. You need to come back to Switzerland, get your citizenship. Like sometimes the voice is clear, and sometimes it's just like a symphony, you know, like that you get mesmerized with and that you dance with, you know. Somehow Tandava is for me this. It's like this dance of freedom and space in which like I am drunk with the mystery, you know, like where any new movement unfold naturally. And so that place allows so much capacity to move with grace in the dark of not knowing what is going to happen next. So the exemplification of what I was saying is like, I could have never created the life that I have now. I could have never done that. And it requires from you a humility of just keep leaning where everyone would tell you you're crazy. You know, like everyone, like so many of my choices, I have been pointed to be completely crazy. And even by myself, you know, like even by the voice of the self that identify and that is conditioned to go in a certain direction. So the wildness of that, you know, that soul that doesn't respond to anything less but the mystery is what I have dedicated my aspiration to. And yeah, that's it. So for me, moving through the mystery is like really surrendering your capacity to know what is best for you, or to listen to what people say is best for you, and to be able to be ready to give it all at any point. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. And it's funny because for a lot of people that just sounds absolutely mad. Like why would you give away everything? Why would you take risks? Why would you, you know, when it comes to financial risk, or, you know, these big strongholds that our conditioned self has, like owning a house in England, you know, growing up in England, it was like once you have a house, you've got safety. So everyone is pushing to buy a house. And I definitely have moments where I think, I wish I owned a house right now. But there's so much that we as society are conditioned to believe that this is what life will look like for us. And so as we start to open up to more mysterious ways of living, which a lot of it is unknown, I can imagine all these different voices, like you say, external and internal, pop up and think, well, why are you doing that? And I noticed in myself, there was a point in my path where I felt like my capacity for trust had got expanded enough that I kind of realized, okay, I've got myself now. Like I've done enough now. I've taken enough leaps of faith that I know I'm going to be fine. And that was a huge game changer because it is something I can sit back and rest into. Even sometimes when I lose myself in worry or fear, or should I be doing this or that, actually, I feel like I've kind of proved to the worried parts of me that some deeper part of me is fine. Like it's running the show, and I should just let go a little bit and let it kind of do its thing, because it seems to know much better than me what it's up to.
Totally. I have a metaphor for this, like that when you're speaking, because it's really this. It's like that you might not know, but people have known me to done a lot of very intense fastings, like long fast and dry fast, and I was playing for a while with dry fasting, so no water, no food, and the maximum I went was 11 days. But I remember the first time that I did 7-day dry fast, my body was dying, like basically, like I know that I was not far from dying the first time. And then I've done like 5 or 6 where I was always adding a day, like one day more. And so I remember that the more I was kind of training basically my beliefs, that my body was dying. So the first time I did a 7-day dry fast, I was still conditioned with the scientific studies that after 4 days of not drinking water, you would die, So I was kind of going against the conditioning I received. And my belief limited me to that experience so that I would never have done that before. So every time I went further, it's like I was not being deprived anymore in the physical body, because somehow I knew that I was not about to die because I've already done it. and so the last time I've done it was 11 days with no water. By the way, I'm not recommending anyone to do that. Like that's not
it's not a medical podcast.
Disclaimer. Yeah, exactly. It's dangerous, but it's like the last time 11 days, on day 10 I was skiing. It sounds like crazy. Yes, I was actually having physical exercise and everything because I knew, like something in me knew, and it was like, okay, I can relax. Like life got me, like it's okay. So yeah, I feel like it's the same kind of metaphor, and I also clearly perceived, in my life I have done so many jumps into, okay, I'm just gonna shift my life right now because it doesn't feel aligned anymore, and I absolutely not know what's gonna happen next, or I'm gonna change country, or I'm gonna give it all to a new experience that is radically opposite of what I was doing. That first of all, I know that there is resources and abundance everywhere, and every time that I've done a radical choice of cutting, even if it's everything, like it's like everything that was not aligned anymore, to get into the next phase without knowing what it was, not only I felt way more expansion and relaxation in my being, because finally I was in integrity, where there was this pressure of like coming to an end of something and you don't want it to end or whatever. And also I've been rewarded with so much more, like it's like I feel like every stage of my life, it's actually just more abundance, not because I'm trying, but just because I feel like it's just life giving you back whatever you've risked for, like it's like, wow, you've risked so much. Take that experience. And I don't know why I'm just thinking about those fasting experience again. It's like, but the first time I did the dry fast, because I thought I would, I was ready to die for that experience. Because basically I was like, I might die those 7 days. And I feel like the truth of that calling that is calling me like so strongly towards doing this experience is worth for me to take the risk to die. Basically, that was the idea. And the first time that I did a 7-day dry fast, I had the most blissful, so what I can call a samadhi experience for 24 hours. On day 6, I was in total bliss, constantly for the from day 6 to day 7. And I have never, ever had that experience again, like, and I've done way stronger thing after that. But the fact I feel that I was ready to give my life, like to be communing with truth, I feel like life came fully back to me, like I was just, I don't know, there's something like this, some kind of paradigm around it. So every sacrifice or every risk that have been taken will be rewarded with the infinite source of abundance of life,
Yeah, totally. And I love the ideas around alignment, because, and it kind of links back to what I was saying at the beginning about me wanting to know sometimes that, like, are you wanting to blow your life up? Because there does come a point where once we start to unpeel enough of the layers of conditioning or beliefs about who we think we must be, I feel like the calls for alignment come stronger and stronger, and it starts to become more and more uncomfortable when truth is not the driving force. And I know that in myself. Like, I know when I'm ignoring deeper calls and it feels incredibly uncomfortable. And I know when I'm in the stream of what feels really true. And like you say, like there's this ease that comes in that's kind of like a relief of, oh, well, if I'm not giving myself to truth, then what's it all for?
Exactly.
Yeah. And now I have stretched that muscle, like I said, so much. There's no way back. I remember another point in my path when I really realized I couldn't go back if I tried. The moments where I sometimes think, oh, what have I done? And I had a more easeful, normal life, and I could have had more safety, and I could have had this or that or whatever. But they got to a point where I was just like, no, like I've come too far. It's done now. I'm totally actually devoted to the alignment and integrity of my soul. And I'm kind of in devotion to that.
Yeah, I like how you described, like it's really that there's a point of non-return, like there's a point where you can't go back to anything that was before, but not even if you tried. And I actually tried many times. So well, let's go back to comfort. But no, like there's a place that is, as you say, eternally devoted to just dance with the mystery that unfolds at any moment, and be a servant of that, just a vessel of that magic.
I've been asked a question a couple of times over the last 3 weeks or few weeks, and it is how to be in the mystery and still show up for responsibility and commitment, and the people in our lives that need us to be in a certain way, or the things that we've agreed to. And I think it's an important topic for a few reasons, and one of them is there's this kind of projection on spiritual people that the spiritual means like airy fairy or woo woo, or can't commit to something and is never going to be able to commit. I'll definitely be there on that day because we're just being danced by the mystery and life's unfolding, and so I can't actually show up. And I think it's a huge projection, because there is a place where we can be danced by life, but also still have comfort and safety and routine and structure and relationships and agreements and boundaries and things that make us human. So I wonder, how you would respond to that question.
I find this question really funny because it's like it's really highlighting like the kind of bypass energy that then can be boxed into a spiritual concept, like that. For me, like moving through the mystery has nothing to do with commitment. Actually, it's a big misunderstanding. It's where your commitment are coming from. It's very different, So it's like the source of where you take your commitment from be fair, but it doesn't impact your commitment actually. Like so the mystery is a commitment to it. So it's like whatever you're going to commit to, it's coming from a place of capacity to let go of your attachment to it, you know, like, but it's not about not committing to anything because it's uncomfortable, you know, and that you're escaping or deflecting from engaging, you know. So it's like, it's actually a level of presence and commitment to life that is even more required if you want to live from the mystery, you know. But it's not, it's just that you're not committing to anything less than that, basically. So and this thing like, I'm just gonna flow towards whatever it is, for me it's just the woo-woo bypass of actually not being able to stand for what feels right, because there's an incapacity to deeply listen to what this inner authority of the soul is speaking, you know. And so therefore there's an incapacity to trust those different voices inside. And it's also the opposite in the way that living from the mystery is letting go of a certain grip and of a certain control, and not wanting to commit to anything, and just not, you know, not being reliable to anything is also a way to control by being avoidant of anything and anyone, you know, like. So that would be my response, you know. It's actually way more terrifying to commit to the mystery than to commit to anything else, you know, like.
And I truly believe that there's a place where we can be in commitment to the mystery, and then the next step is to actually be able to really articulate that to the people that we love, so that there's a level of safety. So for the people in our lives who don't live that way, that I feel like some of the hardest work for me has been around radically standing for what's true to me, and disappointing people, or saying no to certain things, or saying, no, I'm so sorry, I'm not going to be there, or I'm not available for that. And some part of my heart breaks when I missed a best friend's wedding, for example, because I felt I had to stay where I was. And it was a big, it was a big thing. It wasn't just about my personal desires to be somewhere. And it's hard, like it really is hard to, it's hard for me sometimes to stay in the alignment of my truth and try and hold everyone's hearts at the same time. And that's been a big part of my journey, is staying in radicality, and also outstretching and meeting others who don't live that way and find it quite confusing.
I mean, there's also a place of, where do I speak from, you know, and so, and where do I say yes or no from? And I know that when I give my word to something, I try to tap into the place of me that knows beyond my preferences. And so it's pretty rare that if I give my word to something, I would not do it, you know, like, and I had to polish this, because there is like a shadow side of it. But what I've learned over years is like, to try to attune with the authority, the voice of authority, you know, like that is not always comfortable, you know, like it's not the voice that is necessarily comfortable, but then to follow just that voice. And I feel like when there's a commitment to respond from that place, somehow it's heard. You know, like I feel like there is an inner authority in anyone that can recognize that inner authority too, you know. What shakes is the personality. It's like, oh, they might not love me, or they might da 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 da, you know, like it's the part of the personal heart that is wobbling around, potentially hurting someone, or but that there is. And I know that when I've been spoken to from that place, something in me rested, you know, even if it wasn't what I wanted to hear, or like, but because it's not even the voice of anyone, you know, like it's actually almost like the voice of the collective soul that is speaking through someone. And that voice is it's truth,
Yeah.
for me, like it's just, yeah.
Yeah, totally. I've had many experiences of that where I've maybe heard something I didn't necessarily want to hear on a personal level, but how can you deny the voice of truth? And like you say, when it's shaky from myself or from another, then there's the shakiness. Well, what do you mean? And there's that feeling of what's really happening here. And I feel like that's something that I also feel extremely nourished in and just in love with actually about this path is this idea of living from this place of like what's actually really happening. So I've come to a point now where every drama or like external thing that's happening on the outside, I'm always wondering, how is life orientating itself right now? And I can worry about certain things happening in a certain way, but actually, can the deeper part of me rest back and trust that something's happening that's like a higher order is happening, and it doesn't make any sense, but it will reveal. Um, yeah, it's interesting. I said to you, I think on the message I sent you, been drinking a lot of mugwort tea recently because dreams is the way that I really connect with my kind of intuition and guidance, I guess. And mugwort, for anyone that doesn't know, is a very strong worker of dreams. And I've been having very, very, very potent dreams about certain people in recent weeks. And I've been wondering, like, okay, how is this revealing? And it's slowly showing itself in different ways. It's very interesting, but it didn't mean that the next day I was like, okay, I'm going to phone Laura. I had a dream about her, just kind of like, yeah, watching what's happening and what's wanting to happen underneath.
Mm.
Mm.
And it's so much more fun. I like it, we're speaking super serious about the
Yeah.
mystery, but it's like I also feel like there's a part of my child, like it almost brings me back into my child that is like in wonder of what it's gonna be next, like it's like that is just in the curious wanderer that is just witnessing life unfolding with great interest, like and so it brings me back to that quality where I'm excited of seeing the unfolding, like whereas like if I control everything, kind of boring and rigid and predictable. Who likes predictability on the long term? The end of it. Why would you keep interest with this movie? So it's the same thing, and this brings me back to that childlike quality of like not taking life for granted.
Totally, and that's one of the main things that I love about working with people when it comes to soul allyship is just seeing what reveals in someone and it not being anything known and no one needing to be the same. And yeah, there's something I find incredibly nourishing about the channel of someone opening and what is totally true for them coming through. And it might mean that they end up having a massive passion for plants or animals or whatever it is, it doesn't matter, but just seeing that like note of aliveness start to come out more and more in someone and watching them follow that thread gives me a lot of pleasure and a lot of joy.
Yeah, it's like I mean, when I hear you talking about that, it makes me think about watching a child, and like parents having like a life for their child already thought about or designed for them, versus like just looking at your child and being like, I'm really wondering, what are you gonna be? Like it's like how are your gift gonna manifest? Like to which extent are you gonna embrace your full potential?
Yeah, totally. I'm wondering whether to go down a complete rabbit hole here, but maybe I'll just voice it shortly. But I was on a train with a woman sat next to her and her baby, and it was really beautiful to connect with her. And she was giving me a download of this baby's astrological chart, and okay, she's like this because she's a Gemini and this. And although I feel like it's really helpful to have these frameworks, and I love astrology, I'm very interested in it. about who people are and how they move. And I'm a reflector in human design, which could have given me a lot of support if had I known that earlier. But actually, I never want to be boxed in by these things either. So it's kind of, I guess, coming back around to something we talked about at the beginning is, or maybe it was even before we started, of the point where the personal self is developed enough that we can start to dissolve it. And these things that we think we know about ourselves and the way that we start to understand ourselves are become just really helpful tools. But also, how do we release that so that we keep letting in more space and more life and don't get calcified around the fact that, oh, I'm like this because I'm a Cancer moon or whatever.
Yes.
Mm.
Yes. Yeah, I'm with you on that. It's like, I've been equally fascinated by at the end of the day, it's like any structure or explanation of life has been a map into like divine comprehension, of the universe, but there's a map. So there is always like just a limitation to the endless nature that lives
Mm.
between that map, so it's like, how can you get beyond it, as you have a frame that someone has visualized in a certain way and helped you actually move into a frame. But then, like, the ultimate initiation is when you surrender to the formlessness of your existence. So you have to let go of any kind of structure.
Mm-hmm.
And I join you into like, if you do that, and actually in psychology, it's really clear. It's like, if you do that jump of formlessness before you've identified into a form, you're in an eternal space of psychosis. So it's like you were born psychotic because you didn't have a perception of your body outline and your individuality. So we were all born psychotic, and then we become neurotic. So you start having a discernment between me and the other. And then this is how somehow where the psychology finish, and then the transpersonal psychology enter, when then it's like the spiritual re-surrendering to the formless nature of the non-duality of existence. But if you fall through, that's what it is, also spiritual bypass. If you haven't developed enough capacity to be a human and to have an horizontal personality that lives into the duality and the polarity and the contrast of existence, so that you cannot attend to your own needs and define your needs and the needs of others, then any leaning towards a formless nature, first of all, it's one, very dangerous, can lead to suicide. And two, it's an escape of a reality that you could not embody. So that's why you're either into a loop of psychosis, either those really dark night of the soul that you kind of fail and then you take your life away.
Yeah. And I feel like a lot of the time I'm coming back to what embodied spirituality really means to me. And a lot of what we've talked about is part of the fabric of embodied spirituality, like how to be given to a life of deep meaning, fulfillment, in alignment to what feels true, connection with soul, being in service to others that we could support, but still enjoying a beautiful life with home and relationships and all these different things. Like, that's what I'm really interested in, is like just how to be radically alive, and given to something greater than myself, and also really enjoy my day to day and love the things that I love.
And it's how not to fall or choose one or the other. Like, I feel like the bypass come from there. It's like the incapacity to live that multidimensionality of experience of your spirituality, like, and I feel like people are doing their best, and either falling into the horizontal, either escaping in the vertical. But how can you keep being a vertical channel as you interact with the duality of that experience, which allow you to experience God, like God through forms. Yeah.
It's been so beautiful to talk to you. I feel like we could talk for hours, but we're also like sensing a natural kind of coming down. So I wonder if there's anything you'd like to share or say before we wrap up.
No, I feel like it's a good place to stop. Like I'm feeling like
Mhm. Yeah, the
coming to
pause.
silence. Like,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Cool.
Thank you for inviting me there and playing with me, and like inhibiting those those point of joy, that we can
Mm.
talk about.
Yeah, and I love that you said we're talking about the mystery very seriously because I have a tendency to be very serious about it all. So I need reminding sometimes to like bring the joy in. And yeah, I really felt that in our conversation. So thank you.
Mm.
Mm. Thank you.
You're welcome.